Welcome to my very first collection of unseen horrors. Every day I subjugate myself to a new horror to gather a collection of the best frights to share with you. This week, I have a collection of classics to share from the 20s and 30s, a video game that has you driving into the nothingness, and a chilling animated series. I hope you feel inspired to check some of these out when you get to the other side. An abusive and vengeful drunk named David regales a folktale he heard from his old friend. The last man to die on New Year's Eve has to take the helm of Death's carriage for the next 365 days and nights, where one single night is as long as 100 years on Earth. David dies last on New Year's Eve himself and goes on a spiritual journey. He's made to realize how foolish he was to be so angry and abusive during his time on Earth. The meeting of Death's carriage driver and the realization that they spend up to 36,500 hours collecting souls in the nights alone made some spooky moments. I loved this movie and the absolutely beautiful soundtrack by Matti. The Phantom Carriage truly stands out from the crowd of classic horror movies. Haxan is a fictionalized documentary about witchcraft in the medieval ages and the hysteria of the Inquisition. If you dislike old movies with a slow pace, you have nothing to worry about. Haxan is a chaotic festival of special effects with plenty of crazy costumes, sets, clever contraptions, and illustrations created just to portray what the director wanted you to see. You're shown the struggles of being an ugly old lady or a pretty young woman during the medieval Inquisition, where a single accusation from an enemy would have you tortured and gaslit until you confessed to a sin you didn't commit. Haxan is definitely my favorite on the list today, an absolute treasure. Just like the Phantom Carriage, Haxan comes from Sweden. I wonder what they're doing over there. A prolific pianist named Orlac loses his hands in a horrible train accident. A doctor transplants his hands to save his marriage and his career, but he withholds the information that this pair of hands came from a murderer. Orlac starts to have murderous impulses almost immediately and loses control over his hands. This movie was really fun, and it was pretty comical to watch Conrad Veidt be so dramatic with his murder hands. The ending is amazing. I won't spoil it. The Bells is about a generous innkeeper, Matthias, who is going for the title of burgomaster. In fact, he is so giving that he can't pay for his own home. One blizzardy night, a Polish Jew named Baruch comes in with pouches of gold on his belt. Matthias stalls him with drinks until everybody leaves, and then stalks him out into the snowstorm with an axe. This scene held the very essence of a slasher, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. Eventually, Matthias is overcome by the pressure and guilt of his actions, and he dies from a heart attack. He evaded the law, so I guess that's a W. Cyrus West was an eccentric millionaire thought to be crazy by all of his relatives. When he passed, he requested that his will be opened 20 years later. All of his relatives flock to the will reading, but there's also an escaped murderer lurking in the house. Like a game of cat and mouse, or cat and canary, the game ensues. This is one of those murderer in a mansion Scooby-Doo type movies, and it does a pretty good job for an early competitor. The text slides are actually really fun to read in this movie. I don't know what those guys are called, typographers? They did a great job. This movie is a lot of fun, and the ending comes as a strange surprise. A man who goes by the name Dr. Caligari has a tall cabinet that contains a somnambulist, in other words a sleepwalker, that will do anything the doctor commands. Dr. Caligari sets up a show at the fair where he tells people to ask his somnambulist, Cesare, anything they'd like to know and it will be answered. When a man asks how long he'll live, Cesare answers, "Until dawn." Needless to say, the man turns up stabbed to death in his sleep. The set of the movie is so abstract and strange, and the ending leaves you thinking about what actually just transpired. Dr. Jekyll is an eccentric scientist that often goes out of his way to go against the grain with his experiments. One day he came to a theory of the duality of man. The good and the bad parts of a person could be separated. He achieves this goal by creating a potion that transforms him mentally and physically. Eventually, he doesn't need the potion to transform anymore. The evil Mr. Hyde will come out whenever he wants. In this version of the story, he lusts for a woman other than his fiancée. The hideous Mr. Hyde capitalizes on his impulses and holds the woman captive while he abuses her. Dr. Jekyll spirals into the darkness as he allows Mr. Hyde to come out every night to glut Jekyll's sadistic craving. I can only recommend this one highly. You are put into the shoes of a cultist, sent out onto a hellish road to collect the necessary items for an unknown ritual. On the way, a demonic entity threatens you by throwing debris in your way and obstructing your vision with otherworldly hallucinations. If your car is destroyed, you burn with it and have to start from the very beginning. You can barely see 5 feet in front of the car with your headlights on, people drive on both sides of the road, and you have to follow the demon's commands while managing all of this, or it will kill you. Fortunately, you have frequent stops at various settlements to repair your car, manage your stress, and scratch lottery tickets before you reach the dead-end road. I didn't beat the game yet, but it's terrifying and I'm having a lot of fun with it. If you want to check it out, it's on Steam for $2.99. Amano Yukateru is a high school student that is dragged into a last man standing survival game where each contestant has a diary that writes the future. The winner of the contest becomes the new Deus. Unfortunately, Yukateru is a pathetic coward with no friends, and his delusional stalker, Gasai Yuno, is also a part of the game. As the show goes on, Yuno's crazy obsession with Yukateru just becomes more disturbing. The only thing that drags this show down is the weird fan service it has. 2 of the diary holders got. This is a touchy subject for me. 1 instance is a shock factor. 2 times just feels like they're shoving it down your throat. Otherwise, there are a lot of absolutely horrifying moments in this series, so it's definitely worth a watch if you've got the stomach for it. So, how was your journey into the void? If you have any feedback, please send us a letter at the address displayed on your screen now. I hope you can appreciate the selection as I did, and I wish you all the best luck against the waking nightmares.